Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Annalisa and this is Homemade Sunshine. So, you might have thought my book review video days were over because I have not posted one since the end of May, beginning of June. And that is because if you have been following along with my other videos, you would have heard that we have moved. I'm in a new place and I didn't have a whole ton of time to read this summer as much as I normally would because we were driving all over creation. It felt like looking at houses, and then there was the packing to move, and then there was the moving in. So it is now the beginning part of September. We are pretty much settled in. I mean, there's still projects to be done here and there, but I am going to show you what books I did get read this summer. So here's the pile. Oh my goodness, if I can lift the whole thing up, because this is June, July, and August books that I read through. So here's the stack, quite the variety, and it's a total of how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books over the past 3 months, which is including some devotionals, some historical fiction, a comedy book, a nonfiction book, so lots of different books. So let's get started. So first was An Apple a Day, Daily Inspirations for Healthy and Fruitful Living by Carla Dornacher. Not sure if that's how you say it. This is so cute. It's kind of like one of those little books that you'd give as a gift, like in a gift set with a bunch of other stuff. So it's all devotions that are Apple themed, and I love the drawings because it reminds me of, I think, Julie Englebright, or Mary Englebright, not Julie. Mary Englebright's kind of a style. Like, I just love that very country looking drawings. I just love that. So this was very good. It's very short and sweet. It's only, I think, 31 days of devotionals. So it's a good quick one to read through. I don't even remember where, I got this at a thrift store when we lived in Virginia. So this one's been on my shelf for a little while, but it was very, very good. Granted, devotionals sit on my shelf for a while because they usually take 30 days, so you can read a book that's fiction a lot faster than that. And then next was God Save the Sweet Potato Queens. So this is book 2 to the Sweet Potato Queens series. I honestly think this book was better than the first book. I think you'll miss some of the references if you don't read the first book. Oh, you might hear rain in the background. So if you can, it's gonna storm here like all week, so I just had to go ahead and film this anyways. But back to the book. This is literally hilarious. It's good, funny, witty Southern humor. Like, she talks about men that need killing in the first book, and then she talked about people wrote into her like, oh, how could you be encouraging murder? And she's like, that's not, it's just a saying. It's not like I'm actually encouraging people to do that. So I thought it was very funny. Honestly, better than the first book, in my opinion. But would recommend that. All the Ways We Said Goodbye by Beatrice Williams, Lauren Willig, and Karen White. This is a very thick book, a novel of the Ritz Paris. It's really sad. Like, honestly, a lot of people's story. So it's 3 women told throughout 3 different periods, 1914, 1942, and 1964, of 3 periods of history. At the beginning, you don't know how their stories intertwine, but you will find out by the end how their stories all come together, intertwined in and out. And it's honestly like kind of soul crushing. It's really sad. I mean, it's true to the period. I mean, there's like 2 wars happening during this time, so it is like a sad period in history. But yeah, like the first page says, or the little description page says, the heiress, the resistance fighter, the widow, 3 women whose fates are joined by one legendary hotel. So it's very sad. If you're not looking for a like kind of like heart-wrenching read, I wouldn't recommend this, but the style of the writing is very good and it's very gripping. It's just very sad. So entertaining, but sad. And then I finished God's Little Devotional Book for Women, which, you know, that is just so retro, but also kind of feels cottagecore now, you know, now that it's coming back. Like a very feminine cottagecore. It was good. It's very sweet. The pages are laid out like this, and it's usually written in like short story form. Sometimes it is a short story. Sometimes it's just writing about, you know, just something like an idea instead of a story, and then there's always a verse that goes with it. I think it's very cute. Very nice. I love the little stories that are in it, and Usually I would read like a couple at a time when I would read through this. And then, who's this written by? I didn't even say. Oh, it doesn't say it on the front cover, so that's why I didn't say. Next is The World According to Mr. Rogers, Important Things to Remember. So this was compiled after his death, but these are all things that he said or written, and it was a sweet book. So if you grew up watching Mr. Rogers, or even just know about who he was as a person and as a man, he was just a wonderful human being, and it was really nice to read some of his different quotes. It was neat to read the lyrics to a lot of his songs, like It's You That I Like, and oh, I forget the name of the song, but his song about being mad, when you're so mad. Oh, I wanted to see if I could see that one, because the lyrics to that one are just so cute. And I think he does such a good job at describing emotions to young kids and how to deal with them. So yeah, he's just so precious, and I don't think I've ever heard a bad story about him. Oh yeah, here's one from the song The Clown in Me. Sometimes I feel when I'm afraid that I will never make the grade, so I pretend I'm someone else and show the world my other self. I'm not quite sure of me. You see, when I have to make a clown of me. And talking about being yourself, making people laugh, and he'll say, myself, I think I'll be myself. I think I'll let the people see the comfortable inside of me. Myself, I'll be myself. It's only when I feel let down I might be scared into a clown, but he can be himself when I can be myself. Myself, I think I'll be myself. Talking about how some, especially little boys will like just devolve into being like silly and jokey, and that's great because they feel like they're making people laugh, but they're not really being their true selves. So honestly, I feel like if you have kids, this is a good little book to read. If you have kids, show them Mr. Rogers because he's great. And then The Astronaut Wives Club, which is a historical book. I don't want to call it a biography because it's so many people. I don't know, is it still called a biography if it's about like a whole entire group of people? But it's just a historical book talking about the wives of the first astronauts in space, and it goes through a lot of people during the Apollo years. It's neat to learn about each wife. You might want to keep like a list of all the wives because it's kind of hard to keep track of all of them, but it follows them up until now. There are some sad parts of it, but I mean, it's already stuff that's happened, so it's not like it's going to surprise you unless you just haven't looked it up, because some of the astronauts do die. I hope that's not a spoiler, but I mean, this did happen like in the 1960s, so I don't feel like it's a spoiler by this point. But I love this picture, especially of some of the women around one of the rockets. But they are just, it's neat to read about how much their lives changed after their husbands became astronauts, and going from living as like military wives, which the majority of them were, to living kind of like this glamorous lifestyle. Very, very good. And then I read The Blue Zone Solution, Eating and Living Like the World's Healthiest People, Dan Buettner. So this book was pretty good. I think if you have any like eating issues or like have suffered from any disordered eating, I would not read this book. The reason I was interested in it is because, so there's the 5 blue zones, and one is Okinawa, Japan, one is Icaria, Greece. Where are the other ones? One is in, Okinawa, Japan, Icaria, Greece, Sardinia, Italy, Nicoya Peninsula, Costa Rica, I hope I'm saying that right, and Loma Linda, California. So Loma Linda, California is interesting to me because it's because of the Seventh-day Adventist diet and lifestyle and religion that they live on average 10 years longer than most Americans, and my husband and I are Seventh-day Adventists, so to me that's interesting because that is my faith. So just interesting to see how in all of these groups, like faith plays a big part of their health and why they live longer, living in community and that sort of thing. So it was interesting, not as great as I thought it was going to be though. I think the first book would have interested me more because this is more like helping other communities implement what they did in the blue zones or how people lived in the blue zones, which was a little less interesting to me. And then Catalucci. This is a historical fiction book talking about the area in Western North Carolina that is basically called Catalucci area. and the time before all of this land was taken up to be a part of the national park system and the families that lived there. It's interesting. There is a lot of violence and kind of some graphic deaths, which, I mean, they're true to the time period, I will say that. Like, it's not like anything that's like over the top gruesome, to be honest, but there is like one very clear villain throughout the entire book, so that part's kind of weird, and it is kind of hard to keep up with all of the characters, but there is a chart at the beginning, which I had to refer back to multiple times, to try to remember. There's this big family tree, because otherwise it's really hard to keep up with everybody. And then this is Singing Bird by Rosen Mccauley. And this was about a woman in England, Great Britain, somewhere around there, who is trying to look into finding her daughter's birth mother for her. And she first gets spurred on because a nun like calls her, and she gets like a weird message about it, and she decides to travel to Ireland to try to figure this out. And honestly, the twist at the end is like really shocking and like kind of made me mad. I didn't really, I mean, she does find out some pretty crazy stuff at the end, and it really turns her life upside down, and I don't think I would read it again, to be honest. I would tell you the ending. Just look up the ending. Look up the ending. Because I thought it was going to be, I don't know. I didn't think it was going to be what it was, and what it was pretty heart-wrenching, honestly. You know. Big acts of betrayal. Let's just sum it up and that. And then next was Better Latte Than Never by Yvonne Lehman. So this is about a 62-year-old woman who runs a coffee shop in Western North Carolina, which is where I am originally from. That's where I grew up. And there is a death. Like the very first, it's not a spoiler, it happens at like literally the first chapter. So, and it's up to Grace Ann to figure out like what happened. And honestly, it's a great, there are wonderful Christian themes throughout the entire book. It's reference to God. She's reading the book of Job throughout the entire book and relating her life back to Job. This was supposed to be a series, but sadly, none of the other books ever got made. She has since passed away. But this book is worth it to read. If you can find this book, I don't think they printed a whole ton of them, but she is awesome. I really, really love this book. It was a page turner. It was amazing. I was just gripped. I was gripped. This was probably my favorite book of the entire summer, and this is the book I read just, it was, well, it's not the last book I read. I just finished a book this week, but that'll be in my September video. But this book was just absolutely incredible. I wish that she could have written more books, but the ending is good. It has a good ending. I don't like when you've been reading a book, I like books to have a nice wrapped up ending. I don't like it to be too sad, and this is a good one. So even though there's crazy events at the beginning, it wraps itself up nicely by the end of it. So those are my 10 books I have read this summer. I've already read one book this month, and I've picked out another one to read. As you can see, I've got quite the book stack all the way up through here. I'm hoping to get some more books soon to finish out some of these series that I have, because I collect, if you know, the Guidepost Mystery series, but I don't like to start one until I finished whatever series that I'm on, which I've been reading Secrets of Blue Hill Library, but I need 4 to finish the series. So I'm hoping in the next couple weeks to go to the bookstore in Knoxville, which is now like an hour and 15 minutes from me, so it's quite the trek to go out there, but I'm hoping to be able to go out there and maybe find the last few. If not, I'm just gonna have to order them, because I have the whole series of Mysteries of Martha's Vineyard, so that will be what I'm starting next. Which, hilariously, I've thrifted all of these from the same thrift store. Like, I've thrifted every single book from the same thrift store for this series. A lot of these came from, in Virginia, there is a thrift store called Disabled American Veterans. Yes, DAV. I just called it the DAV. I wanted to make sure I had the acronym right. And one day somebody just like, I've never saw it before or since, just donated like a ton of these series in, which is why you see all these yellow stickers on these books. So I started reading these books while I lived there. They were amazing. I literally had a cart full of all of these books. I think they thought I was crazy, but they weren't. They were $1.98 plus 20% off, so how could I not pick those all up? So that is enough of me yammering. So I will show you and review all the books that we read this summer. Catalucci, Singing Bird, Better Latte Than Never, The Astronaut Wives Club, The World According to Mr. Rogers, Important Things to Remember. This is also great if you need to pick me up. If you're going through a hard time, this is a book you should read. God's Little Devotional Book for Women, The Blue Zone Solution, All the Ways We Were. Oh my gosh, that's another book I'm reading. All the Ways We Said Goodbye. Oh my lord. Saying the wrong name over here. God Save the Sweet Potato Queens and An Apple a Day. So, those are the books that I have. Let me know, how many books did you get read this summer, or did you kind of have to take a break from reading? I love to read and I love to knit in the winter, but right now it's summer, so, well, it's the end of summer. It's the beginning of fall. All my fall decor's out. My fall things are switched over, but I miss summer. But while it's still warm, I want to be able to get outside as much as possible, because here it is cold from sometimes it starts getting cold in December. Last year I wore sandals at Christmas, so who knows. It's usually, though, freezing cold from January all the way up until right at the beginning of May, or even longer, through mid-May. So when I'm really freezing cold, those are the months that I'm going to be reading a lot and knitting and doing all of those indoor activities that I enjoy. But when it's summer, I want to get out and do as much outside, spending time outdoors as I can, especially because I don't know how you guys feel. I know I'm just yammering over here. I feel like there's nothing to do hardly in the winter, go outside and do, so I want to get all of my excursions going out and doing things before the weather gets cold. So I will see you guys next month with another haul. I've already read one book and it's September 7th, so hopefully we'll get through some more. I'm working through a devotional right now. I don't think I'm going to finish that before the end of the month, but who knows? So I will see you guys next time. Bye.